Don't let the name deceive you. This is not an Xbox 360 accessory. The TurboTouch 360 works with the Sega Genesis, replacing the D-pad with a smooth yellow pad that senses your thumb using magic. It knows where my thumb is at all times. It knows it's over here, over there. There's an old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and the Sega Genesis D-pad is certainly not broken. If anything, it's the best D-pad ever created. So why change the entire concept and design of a D-pad? Because they could. Hey, it's creative. And they tried something different, and I think this is more of an item for collectors rather than actual enthusiasts, because it completely alters the feel of the game when you play it. And we'll take a look at that here as I play a bit of Truxton using the TurboTouch 360 TM. Yeah, that's the problem I have with the TurboTouch 360. As you can see, playing Truxton, you lose a lot of responsiveness if you're used to playing with a standard D-pad, which most people who play the Genesis are probably used to playing with a standard D-pad. This is an interesting concept. It's just a bit flawed in execution. It doesn't move. If you can see that, I'm pushing on it, but there's really nothing to push because it just senses where your thumb is. As I said, using magic, or some other kind of electromagnetic, biological, synthetic, telepathic thing that's installed on the inside. I have no idea how the hell this works. If you want to go right, you have to go way to the right. If you want to go left, you go way to the left and up and down. Since the Sega Genesis controller is not an analog controller, you don't get a smooth movement to the left or right. It's all or nothing. But I like bizarre concepts. I'm not going to recommend that you run out and buy one, but it's certainly interesting. And if you're collecting Sega Genesis hardware and accessories, don't miss this one because it's a different way to play games. Although I'm just not sure how it would actually improve your game, because especially for platformers where you want a lot of precision, you just don't get it with this because you have to move your thumb a long distance or a long way in order for it to respond moving left versus moving right and up and down. Now, moving beyond just the actual TurboTouch gamepad thing, the size of the controller is quite nice. It's a very big controller. Feels a lot like the Sega Genesis controller. The buttons aren't nearly as good as the actual Sega Genesis buttons. They work, and they each have turbo switches. So you can independently activate turbo, and there's your start button, and you get the handsome, flashy TurboTouch 360 logo. And you can't help but admire the loud circle around the TurboTouch pad. In fact, this whole thing is loud, and that does make it cool. I'm not sure if it's practical, but it's certainly cool. Let's take a look at the back of the TurboTouch 360 made in China from Triax. I'm not sure I've heard of Triax before, but now you have, and you've heard of the TurboTouch 360. I'd like to thank JC for loaning me a TurboTouch 360, which he says is his only Sega Genesis controller. Well, JC, I'm mailing you back another Sega Genesis controller, one with a real D-pad. I've only got like 70 of them, so it's yours. But you've got a collector's item here because this is just a pretty kick-ass, cool controller that defies ordinary, with touch-sensitive plastic replacing a D-pad. This one is now yours. CGR! Exclamation point.